Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor. And, considering Congress is in recess right now, it's surprising how busy this city is. Usually August is dead. But with the indictment of former President Donald Trump and the slow march toward what appears to be an impeachment process for Joe Biden, well, things are kind of heightened right now. And we want to get an update on where all these stories stand with the great John Solomon, investigative journalist at justthenews.com. John, thank you. Am I wrong? I mean, it's supposed to be dead time in the middle of August in D.C.
It's supposed to be, but it's been anything but. It's been a really tumultuous and newsy month and consequential month. I mean, You have the former president of the United States with 4 indictments, and you have the current president's son, now looking at the possibility of an indictment and a trial right in the middle of the 2024 election.
And as I just mentioned, quite possibly because of the events leading Merrick Garland to put Mr. Weiss, of all people, in as special counsel, there really does seem to be a louder drumbeat now for an impeachment inquiry. First, let's go there. I know they're out of town, but you still have great sources back in their home districts. What are you hearing right now in terms of the mood of Republicans moving toward impeachment?
They don't feel that they have enough votes in their caucus. They're about 40 votes short in their caucus based on the head count I did over the last week to approve an impeachment committee. However, even those people in the group of 40 now feel like there's an awful serious situation here with Joe Biden, and that if a few more shoes fall, maybe they find some music that comes across or some other development, maybe they get some new documents, that at that point they could be tipped over. But it's important for the caucus to get unanimity before they proceed with impeachment, and important for them to also be able to describe to the American public what the specific crimes are and why they're taking this action at this moment. I think they're a little ways off. I think there could be an interim step. I wouldn't be surprised if House Speaker Kevin McCarthy took all these disparate investigations and rolled them into one super committee, a select committee, to signal to the public that something more serious is going on, but we're not yet there to impeachment. But a select committee would have a lot more power to subpoena and compel, because the January 6th committee was a special select committee, not an impeachment committee, and it won scores of court cases compelling people to cooperate. So the courts in the District of Columbia have been on the side of giving Congress everything it wants. A select committee could potentially make that possible for them.
Interesting. And certainly the events that have transpired over the last couple of weeks with regard to the whistleblower testimony, what we've learned about the operations in the Justice Department, FBI agent, now that testimony has been released corroborating the IRS whistleblowers. One thing is for certain. Politically, President Biden is not seen as the pristine, honest Joe. In fact, his ability to tell the truth and all of the lies that have piled up now over the years, that's really damaging what we're now calling the Biden brand.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's nothing more personal to the American people when a president looks into the camera and tells you a lie. And that's what Joe Biden did in 19 and 20 on 5 or 6 seminal issues. And let's just go through them. He said his family never got money from China. Hunter Biden was about to plead guilty to $6 million of money he got from China. He said he didn't have anything to do with his son's business, didn't talk to his business partners. Several of Hunter Biden's business partners, who are personal friends of the president, say that's not true. Joe Biden did meet and did make phone calls. He said the laptop was disinformation. It wasn't. Those sort of seminal lies make Joe Biden feel like a traditional politician who lies to the American people. You take that with the fact that the economy's not feeling good to people, and he's had several failures like Afghanistan, and now he seems callous. He doesn't seem to care about the people of Hawaii when they suffer one of the worst wildfires in a century. He'd rather be beaching it out in Delaware. I think that combination is sort of creating a perfect storm of discontent for President Biden right now.
I got to ask you, John, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Trump presidency and people like Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post with his 4 Pinocchios, and Daniel Dale, that guy over at CNN. I mean, they literally made careers fact-checking the president. Where are they now? It's radio silence.
Well, the corrections need to be coming. We're going to have a story in the next couple of days that point out some of the more egregious ones. It was USA Today that started the whole fake story that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Have they corrected that? We haven't found any evidence of that. There were several things that Glenn Kessler wrote that are now deeply challenged. Some of those have been corrected. Some of those have not been corrected. The business of truth watching and canceling media is really in a boomerang moment. A lot of these organizations that censored us in 2019, 2020, and 2020 about Joe Biden, about the laptop, about COVID-19, they have been proven wrong, and yet there hasn't been a serious consequence yet. And likewise, the truth watchers who called legitimate journalism fake, they haven't either corrected or fixed the problem. Joe Biden's disinformation machine is in disarray right now.
Yeah, and by the way, unlike stretching the truth about your crowd size at your inauguration, which got about a 48-hour news cycle of coverage, lying about the Hunter Biden laptop and saying it was Russian disinformation just about 10 days before the election, that was consequential. That actually affected the outcome of the 2020 vote.
I think any reasonable person would say it met the definition of election interference. It was a fake story designed to mislead the American people. And it was done at the behest of people who derive their credibility from the taxpayers. These are all people that work for the intelligence community. They use those credentials to fool us into thinking something wasn't true when in fact it was. That is a hideous thing. I think it's going to be, as history looks back, one of the worst political dirty tricks played during election, with the exception maybe of Hillary Clinton's Russia collusion case, which we now know was so organized.
The Steele dossier. John, while we're talking about election interference, a lot of people are looking at these indictments coming out of Fulton County and saying this is election interference. I know you've examined these charges and you've talked to a lot of legal experts. There's something about these RICO charges that really stink to high heaven. What is your analysis telling you right now, and what are you hearing about the future for those charges in particular?
Well, let's just take someone that's voted for President Biden, says he would like to see President Trump get defeated in the 2024 election. Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law professor emeritus, one of the great legal minds, an unavowed liberal and a supporter of President Biden. He says that these charges don't meet the test. They try to criminalize free speech and political actions that are protected by the Constitution. The idea that a group of people disparately working somehow formed a criminal enterprise does not seem to jibe to him. And across the board, former federal prosecutors, former defense lawyers, we've interviewed about a dozen people. They've all said the same thing. But the first strike against this may occur not from President Trump, but from what Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff, did yesterday. He filed a motion to move the case to federal court, something that people who are charged with crimes when they were a sitting federal official can do. Almost all the lawyers I talked to last night say they think that's going to succeed. The federal standard of racketeering would then be applied to this. Would be a very difficult case for Georgia to make a federal a case of RICO based on the interpretations of the law.
Very interesting. And by the way, during the course of this interview, you've mentioned two very important issues. First, the legal analysis on the RICO case and those things. I want our viewers to know that Jordan Sekulow, one of the former advisors, legal advisors to President Trump, will be joining us, because that's part of the problem here. Legal advisors like John Eastman, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, you may disagree with their legal opinion, but they've been indicted for giving that opinion, John. That's terrifying.
If you look at the last 5 years of American history, you have seen the left repeatedly try to erode very basic rights that our founding fathers gave us. The right to bear arms, the right to free speech, the right to a good counsel in the matter of any litigation. It's not a mistake that all of these are under assault right now. It's important for America to wake up and realize that these decisions don't just affect Donald Trump. They affect every American in every corner of this country. And I think we have to wake up and see what's really happening to our country.
Well said. You also mentioned the disaster that we're acknowledging today, 2 years on, the disaster of Kabul, the pullout of Afghanistan, and joining us coming up next, the authors of the brand new book about that disaster. Keep it here. It's O'Connor Tonight on Salem News Channel.